Hey everyone, welcome to this week's service. We appreciate you guys checking it out here on YouTube. I'm Tracy Pfeiffer, and we hope you experience God through this video and through this service. We invite you, if you're in the area, to come check us out at 906 or 1026 every week in person, or you can check us out even live on Facebook, the Encounter page on Facebook at 1026. Again, we hope you just experience God through this. Thanks.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Scuba Stan. Welcome
Scuba Stanley. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Encounter. Facebook, welcome in your pajamas. Glad to have you. Woo. I believe we're here. We call it the Encounter because we encounter Jesus at home. It's called an e-counter. Anyways, please stand with us and worship.
E-counter, I get it.
In the dark, you're all alone, growing comfortable. Are you too scared to move and walk out of this tomb? Buried underneath lies that you believe, safe and sound, stuck in the ground, too lost to be found. You're just asleep, and it's time to leave. Come on, rise up, take a breath, you're alive now. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us out from the grave like Lazarus? You're brand new, power of death couldn't hold you. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us out from the grave like Lazarus? Oh, out from the grave like Lazarus. When he said your name, the thing that filled your veins, it's more than blood, it's kind of love that washes sins away. Now the door is open wide, and the stone's been rolled aside. The old is gone, the light has come, so come on and rise up. Take a breath, you're alive now. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us out from the grave like Lazarus? You're brand new, power death couldn't hold you. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us out from the grave like Lazarus? church is alive. This is what it sounds like. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like when the church is alive. And our hope forever is the name of Jesus. We are free and you are with us. The church is alive. The church is alive. And our hope forever is the name of Jesus. We are free and you are with us. The church is alive. The church is alive. This is what it sounds like. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like when the church is alive. This is what it sounds like. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like when the church is alive. I can feel it coming, I can feel it happening tonight.
All right. Whew. Am I else excited to be here? Oh my gosh. So I'm excited about this morning. For me, because I get to have a good friend and mentor here. For you, because you get a break from me. So that's always fun. Some of you guys may not know who this guy is. This is Pastor Steve Clayson. He's the guy who almost 12 years ago went, the church should look different. God gave him a vision for what the church should look like, and through that, the encounter was birthed. So he's the guy responsible for the encounter. Good, bad, ugly, all of that. And so I'm excited to have Steve speak this morning. He's a huge mentor in my life still. We still connect on a really regular basis. And so I'm just privileged to have him here and thankful that he was willing to join us.
Thank you. It's such a privilege to be here. I was telling Mandy and Tracy, it was before they came, I realized that I played a video of Hillsong when we were the East Peoria Free Methodist Church, and it showed 1,000 kids just rocking and clapping, and the place was going on. I said, this is what the church should look like. I had like 4 people come and go, no, church shouldn't look. You guys are that. Yeah, the church is alive. This is what it looks like, and this is what it sounds like. So I'm so excited for you. So when I was in high school, I was this amazing athlete, as you can tell by my body today, and I was a swimmer. And swimming is probably the worst sport ever to watch. I mean, you're behind a glass, and they do this, and no one cares. And so my poor parents, I don't think they ever came, which I don't blame them. It was nothing to watch. But so I was a swimmer, I was a sprinter, and so sprinting, you would do a 50 or 100, then it got longer too, and 500. 500 was 20 laps. I'm like, oh, I'm going to die if I do that. So I was a sprinter, and so 50 is down and back, 100's 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And so about my sophomore year, 2/3 of the season in, something kind of clicked in for me, kind of mentally, where I realized, oh, I could do this. It's not as painful as I thought it was. Because I was kind of just going along with the crowd, kind of dialed in and really began to kind of excel. And so we're at one of the closing meets of the year, and we're having an individual, just us and another team who was pretty good. And I was the second sprinter. So the first one is the good guy. I'm the loser, and then there's 4 of us kind of thing. And so we're doing 100. So down, back, and we take off. And I'm swimming. And if you're familiar with swimming, you got goggles. You can't really see anything. And you're breathing. I'm a right-hander, so I'd breathe, every 4th stroke, And I look up, and this is really unusual, but my coach is walking along. So I'm out there. He's walking along the side of the pool. And he's walking, and I'm seeing him wave his towel. I'm going, what are you doing? And I'm swimming along, and I'm watching him wave his towel. And then he had this huge whistle. And he would whistle every stroke, every breath, because your ear comes out. Otherwise, you can't hear anything, okay? And he would just go and waving the towel, and I'm going, I'm winning. I had no idea, because you don't see anyone. You don't have, you see a black line and that guy, you know? And so I'm ahead. And so I'm really grooved. I'm going, yes, I got this. I do lap number 2, go into 3, and I hit the flip turn. So when you swim, and if you're a sprinter, you flip turn. And you have a line, a dark line, and there's that cross, okay? That little stub end. When you hit that, you flip, and then you push off with your feet. So I get to that cross, I think, and I flip, and I'm ready to roll, and I miss the wall. I just, and I kind of sink. And I recover, kind of, and get 4th place, which is exactly what I was supposed to get, right? And I just was like, oh my goodness, if I would have hit that, because I was on this groove, my coach actually paid attention, I would have had maybe a personal record and had all this cool stuff, and it just flattened me out. And you know, in your life, there are these opportunities where you just missed it. I said first service, and I'm going to reclaim it because I'm fairly sure it's true. If I would have hit that wall, I'd be an Olympic swimmer today, showing you my medals. There's some mean people, and they're in churches, okay? And I prayed with a couple earlier that went through some mean stuff at a church, and there's some things that happen, and it's really hard. You know, the stats tell you in football, in the pro football, NFL, if you start 0-2, there's 17 games, 0-2, you only have 11% chance of making the playoffs. Those of you that are Bears fans, you know that, right? And so there's not a really good chance of making the playoffs. Now, I'm a Colts fan, and we stink royally. So, but it's like it's a lost cause. If you can't start right, if you can't get it down, you're done. And we tend to begin to write it off. I'll tell you another story. There's this 13-year-old girl that ended up pregnant. Poor kid gets pregnant. And of course she says, sorry. She has to go tell her dad. 13, Dad, I'm expecting. And believe it or not, she lived in a culture that she was promised to be married. And she has to tell the person that she's promised to be married to, I'm pregnant. Now, in that day, you could take a woman out, and there's still parts of the world you can do that. Take this woman out, you could stone her to death because of that. And you know this girl, her name was Mary. 2,000 years ago, the ages were between 12 and a half and 18 that they could be promised to be married. Mary is promised to someone else. His name is Joseph. And we know that Joseph doesn't take kindly to that because he's about ready to say, I'm out. And God literally steps in and goes, don't do that, Joseph. You embrace this young lady. But she tells her family, she tells Joseph, imagine what her friends thought. Guess what? I'm pregnant. And they go, oh, right. Well, it wasn't my fault, right? And they go, right, I get that. Imagine the whispers of the neighbors that see her begin to show. We know she was mocked. We know they made fun of her. You know why? Because the Bible tells us 2 things. One, that Jesus shows up and they go, wait, isn't that Jesus, Mary's son? Oh, we know that story. And matter of fact, the Bible says he couldn't perform many miracles in his hometown. You think that they had an already predetermined opinion of him, right? This is Mary. This is her setup. But we're talking about the future, the Tale of Two Cities, and what you can do. And so I want to ask you this question, if you'd hit that for me. What was a time that you wished that you could have started differently? Maybe there's something in your life that's holding you back. You go, man, if just this crossroad, if it would have done differently, I'd be here.
Stand and worship with us this morning. We're going to do We Exalt Thee. It's always held a special spot in my heart. It just seems to touch my soul. No matter how many times we do it, it always chokes me up. I just love this song so much. Do it.
Thou art exalted far above all God. Thou, O Lord, art high above all the earth. Thou art exalted far above all God. Thou, O Lord, art high above all the earth. Thou art exalted far above all God. We exalt thee. We exalt thee. We exalt thee. Oh Lord, we exalt thee. We exalt thee. We exalt thee. Oh Lord, we exalt thee. We exalt thee. We exalt thee. Oh Lord. I just want to take a minute in the middle of the song, just kind of touch on this with you guys. I don't know if this is your first Sunday here, your 300th Sunday. It doesn't really matter. We all have stuff going on in our lives, right? We all walked in here with something that was holding us back. You don't have to walk out the doors with it, though. That's the point. You came in here with it. You can walk out without it. So just take a minute. I just want you guys to take a minute, close your eyes, focus on whatever that is, whatever that barrier is, and just let it go. Let God know, I exalt you, Lord. I exalt you. Take it from me. This is all for you. And plan to walk out these doors and make that difference, right? Oh, it's all we have. And with all we are, we've come so far to lift your name on high, Jesus.
from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory, and you are worthy of it all. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. Amen.
Lord, I just thank you that you allowed us to be here together. I pray that you continue opening our hearts and just allow us to see you today, hear what you are speaking to our souls. In your name, amen.
Have a seat. So again, my name is Steve Clayson. I know a bunch of you, but I know a bunch of you don't know me, and I will try to explain a little bit about my life and coming here. But really, we're talking about this Tale of Two Cities, and if you get into that vein where God is pulling you and directing you, then there's a huge opportunity. And I just want to encourage you not to miss that. And you need to know that I see this church moving forward in an appropriate manner, and you would be missing that to just make church a checklist and go, yeah, I went. Okay, so there's so much more than what goes place here. So our question is, how do we reverse a slow start? So I want to take you right to Luke chapter 1, to Mary, and read what the angel said. God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. The virgin's name was Mary. The angel went to her and said, "Greetings, you are highly favored, the Lord is with you." So that's how Mary gets introduced to this concept that, guess what? You're going to be the scourge of your society. You're going to be the one that people whisper about, point at. The angel goes, don't worry about that. You're highly favored, okay? I'm sure that day 4 after that, she's going, this is not so cool. This is a messy situation. Here I am, stuck in the midst of that. And we have to ask ourselves, what happens when we're in this messy situation, or we miss the opportunity, or we're in this chaos of life? We took the wrong job. We maybe got connected with the wrong person, and our kids are a mess, and my finances are out of order, and I just don't know what to do next. And I want to challenge you that today can be a day that if you will offer that up to God, He has a plan, a direction, and a purpose for you, but it's your call. Guess what? You can sit and complain about it. You can sit and be upset. You can sit and regret all you want. So let's talk a little bit about how we stop that. You stop the cycle of regret from your slow start. You've got to put a halt to that on your own. I can't do it for you. Checking the box won't do it for you. You're going to have to engage in that process of addressing that. Because if there are consequences to this, one of the consequences is that you obsess about that regret and you never get past it. In other words, it's always the excuse why I don't fulfill more of my life. It's always the reason that I fall short. It's always the story that I tell that defines me. Whether you were sick, your company didn't treat you right, your spouse was mean, my parents, you just don't know my parents. That's your story, then you're stuck in that obsession. A second consequence is maybe you use that as a crutch, convincing yourself, I can't do this because. No, you don't understand. See, I had this and therefore I can't. And I'm just here to tell you that I have made a mess of my life. And I could use that as a crutch. I got to tell you, I've lost 2 or 3 jobs, and it's all from Christian organizations, okay? They just didn't like me enough, and, I did stupid things, and I would get fired. Just want to let you know, getting fired from a church is a pretty messy thing, all right? And I could go, well, I can't move on from there. I'm stuck. Now I need to go do this. It's up to you. Third consequence is it stops you from taking the courageous steps. You let this be the barrier of your courage. So we showed up here at the East Peoria Free Methodist Church, and we need to do something different. We were in tough shape. And it's not a blame any of those people, none of that. Just the culture was not functioning well. And we took this risk and hired this guy that we knew, or that I knew, that he knew me. He contacted me and he goes, dude, are you looking for a youth pastor? I'm going, you don't want to come here, all right? I know you too well. This is probably not what's going to work for you. And he and Mandy were in Nashville, and just, it was, yeah. And I said, well, I have a little bit of money. If you will come and do youth, and I can get Mandy on the stage to sing, you head that band up and make her sing. He's like, I don't know if I can make her sing. And I'm going, yeah, I know that, but yeah, so they came and spent some time with us. And I got a chance to show Mandy and Tracy around the city. They were from Nashville. So I'm like, yeah, let me show you this area. There was a water tower, a hill, and a river. You want to come, right? This is so cool. They're going, Peoria, Illinois? Why would, And so it's all about the kingdom risk. And we had this meeting. I mean, we were, Tracy, did I tell this already? No. So Tracy was, I've done this so many times, I'm kind of losing it here. There was this red carpet and red stage, and there was like a prayer kneeling rail. You've seen them in churches, right? And they're interviewing Tracy during church, and he sits on the kneeling rail, and they go, why do you want to come? And he just sits there, and he goes, well, I think I'd like to hang out with Steve a little bit. And I'm going, this is not going great, the poor guy. So we met immediately following, and Tracy was headed out. We had kind of our last conversation. He's headed out, and he walks out the room. I close the door, and I go, is there any reason that we would not hire this guy? And if there's no reason, we're just doing that today. And I think by the time they got down the hill on Springfield Road, I'd called and said, guess what? We'd like you to come. And they moved in on the coldest day of the year and got their truck stuck on Springfield Road. It was an amazing day, okay? Their kids were puking, and it was one of those days. And it was a long time ago. But it was all just part of the kingdom risk. All part of what God's going to do. Are we going to sit here and complain because we can't move on? Or are we going to stop the cycle? Second thing, by offering our failure back to God, you allow him to redeem your weaknesses into strength. I cannot see that. Sorry, I'm really getting old. I've been fired from a church or two. Been fired from a Christian camp. And I ended up coming here. I think I worked long enough trying to convince them how good I was, even though I had this weird background. But our son had gotten really sick when we lived in Northern Ohio. Some of you have heard this. And he got really sick. I mean, to the point he was in the hospital a lot. And he was prescribed medications. And his medications cost us $1,500 a month. And we would go to Walmart and pick it out. And I remember the poor girl behind the thing, she'd ring it up and this $1,500 would pop up. And her eyes would be this big. She goes, do you know how much this is? I go, yeah. Because she thought we were going to yell at her because it was her fault, And so we just bit the bullet and did it. And I had a little bit of a retirement. I was 42, 3, 4, somewhere in there. And we cashed it all out just to pay for medication. So we watched that just go from, like $20,000. I mean, it did not take long. And we left Ohio, and we left in 2009, the year, bad economy. If they say, hey, remember the bad economy in 2009? That was us, okay? And we lost our house, and we just lost everything. We had people that supposedly said they were going to rent, and they paid us rent for a few months and then stopped doing that, and it cost us thousands of dollars to get them out of the house, remodel the house, to try to sell it, short sell it, which means you're losing money. Wouldn't happen, and we gave it back to the bank. Then we got the black mark from the government, said, you can't borrow any more money. So we went on this trajectory of just, okay, we're going off the radar financially. We're just going off the reservation. And I don't want to know anything about this or that. And God kind of showed up because we started the encounter, and I went and got another job. I went and worked for the Peoria Journal-Star. Does that exist anymore? Okay, it does. All right. And so, it was kind of dying when I was there. So great, they hired me. And I would drive in the middle of the night, from 1:30 in the morning till 9:30 the next. I was a manager, and I told this last night. I was just struggling. It was dark, and I'm working in the middle of the night. And I told Tracy, I go, you've introduced a bunch of new songs. Run me a CD so I can just play something in my car, because I'm just struggling out there in the dark, trying to go, what's going on? What's happening? And God just took us in a dark spot. And we sat with Mandy and Tracy a couple times going, are we going to do this? I remember one Sunday, Tracy called me. He goes, hey, did you give money in the offering? He goes, I know we did. Are we the only ones that gave money in the offering? And I said, I think so, And we were just not sure we were going to survive. And then we also talked about, there was about, I don't know how many years, probably 6 or 7 years ago, Tracy and myself and a guy named Brandon, who we had as a worship leader, we all sat in the office and we realized that all three of us wanted to move. I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore. I had interviewed, he had interviewed, Brandon had interviewed, and we sat in there and we all said, oh, you did that? I did that. Tracy goes, I went to Michigan, and I said, I talked to this group. And Brandon said, you got Nick doing, and all of us realized that God said, no, don't move. And there was this awakening in my office going, whoa, we're all stuck with each other? Okay, let's make this work. And God just took us in another place. So we could have given up, could have walked away, could have said, this is stupid. This is a waste of my time and resources. I can't survive this anymore. Or you can take your weakness and move forward. In Genesis chapter 32, Jacob encounters Jesus, I think. It talks about that he wrestles with an angel, which can also be interpreted as the Son of God. And Jacob has this wrestling match with him, and the angel is looking to release, but Jacob hangs on for all he's got, And this battle is over, and for the Son of God, or for this angel to release from Jacob, he literally dislocates his hip, puts his hip out of socket, and Jacob lets go, and he says, before I go, before you let me go, I want you to bless me. And God blesses him. And he gets up the next morning, but from then on, he has a limp. Now, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is you got a limp. The good news is that limp signifies that God blessed him. Real quick, anyone ever heard the name Jacob before? Raise your hand if you've heard it. Oh, so you have. Look at that. Jacob is a name we know today because he wrestled with God and he won. But Jacob has a limp, and his weakness is now a sign of greatness. My son ended up in the hospital, and I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with this thing. Sorry, David. He was in the hospital so much and struggling so much, and we brought him here. He was a junior, I think, when Tracy and Mandy showed up, and he was there. Tracy was his youth pastor. I told this last service, and so he did an overnight with Tracy at the church here, and he could sleep anywhere. He was a gifted sleeper, and I walked in that morning after an all-nighter, which I didn't think was good for him, and I walked into the couch, and he had taken a welcome mat and fallen asleep and used that as a blanket. And so I walk in, and there's this black cover. I'm going, what's going on here, He goes, I was just tired. And Tracy was so gracious and so walked him through that. And Nate was this massive mess, emotionally. And it was just this, I remember once pulling you aside. We were having so much trouble. I pulled Tracy aside and I go, Tracy, I read this about the promises of God. Can it be true? And he goes, yeah. And I started to cry. I said, I just can't do this anymore. Next week, Nate is going to be ordained in the Church of God. And there's so many parts to that story, but I'm here to tell you that Nate walks with a limp. And the limp is not physical or that you can see, but he has a weakness in his life. And you know what? He's turned it into a strength. And God is using him. I'm here to tell you, stop making the excuse. Because God is here today to tell you want to join me or not? Stop the regret. Stop the cycle. Mary had no reason to succeed in society. And yet we know her name today. So now what? Where do we go from there? Look at this verse, Luke 1:20. I want to go back to that angel. Went to her and said, greetings, you're highly favored. The Lord is with you. I'm here to tell you that there's only one person's opinion of your life that matters. That's not your spouse. I know that they're important. It's not your kids. It's not your employer. It's not who brought you up. It's not who fed crap into your life. Only God's opinion of you matters. He has a plan for you. He has a purpose for you. He has a direction for you. You got to decide if you want his truth or that truth you've been hanging on to. You can hang on to it, but you're going nowhere. And you'll be here next week in the same condition. Only one person's opinion matters. You want it? Secondly, you are living the promise because you are blessed. If you've encountered Jesus, you have been blessed. And you are here to give a blessing to someone else, period. This church, when we transitioned, we just said we are going to be about people that are far from God. And I see a bunch of new faces out here. And you are here because this church said, we're not just going to let it whittle away. We're going to do something different. You can only sit here for a while before you need to get in the flow and be a blessing. Whether it's not first things first, help me out. Invade, thank you. Invade, serving, children's, whatever it may be, you need to be a blessing. Is that my phone? That's probably Nate. Hey, Nate. Sorry about that. Was that me? Oh, okay, I feel better. Is that Dusty? Was that Dusty that did that? So let me tell you about some people who had slow starts, all right? In the Old Testament, you've heard of these people. Jacob was one of those guys. But you've heard of a man named Joseph? And he was the transition of this fledgling nation going to Egypt. And Joseph ended up being a ruler, but he was in captivity, sold into slavery for up to 14 years that he wrestled with that. There was a man by the name of Moses who today is considered the greatest Old Testament prophet ever. That's what the Bible says. Moses was the greatest Old Testament prophet ever. He spent 40 years being dealt with by God. David, the best king Israel ever had, was pursued by Saul for 11 years. 11 years he ran around the mountain trying to get in front of Saul so he wouldn't get caught. You know also about Gideon. Gideon was a mighty warrior. And God shows up, or this angel shows up and says, you are a mighty warrior. And Gideon's actually hiding. And the angel shows up in his hiding spot and says, you're a mighty warrior. And Gideon goes, who? Who are you talking to? Who's in here? Okay? And so Gideon doesn't even think he's a mighty warrior, but God uses him to do something amazing. Mary, we just talked about her. She was at a huge disadvantage, but God used her to bless the rest of the world. Paul, who wrote over half of the New Testament, he was a man before he came to Jesus, spent his life pursuing those who had followed Jesus and just putting them to death. That's a slow start, I got to tell you. Okay? What's your excuse? Didn't get the raise you wanted? Having difficulty in your marriage? I get it. Those are hard things. But God has a plan. One of my favorite verses, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Anyone interested in hope and a future? Yeah, amen to that. But here's what it also says in Jeremiah chapter 29. It says, also seek the peace and the prosperity of the city. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. So when we were first started and we started to pray for some parts of the city and wanted to serve the city, I got to tell you, I was looking just to get out. I just wanted to get out of East Peoria because it was just, we were crumbling and things weren't working well. And it wasn't until God said, stay here. Just stay here and figure it out. Okay. And then we began to turn. So sometimes God's saying, you with me or not? Pray for the prosperity of the city, because you too will prosper. Numbers 23:19 says, God is not a man that he should lie, or a son of man that he should change his mind. Does he speak and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill? God is looking to fulfill the promise in your life. You want it? It's your call. You get the opportunity to do that. Go back to that Luke verse. The angel showed up and he said, greetings, you are highly favored, the Lord is with you. Now, stop, don't look down, don't check your Facebook, look at me. You. Not your neighbor, not your kids, not your spouse, not the pastors here. You are highly favored the Lord is with you. That's the promise today. It's up to you whether you take it or not. So I don't know what's held you back. I don't know if it's in your marriage, your income, your financial situation, you're sick, things aren't working, and things just look horrible. But I know a guy, all right? And we're going to sing about him. And in this song, we call him the Waymaker, the Promise Keeper. And I love the song because it speaks to me. It says, even though you don't see it, I'm working. Because that's what he did in Nate's life. That's what he's done in our life. That's what he did in Mandy and Tracy's life. Even though I don't hear it or feel it, I get so caught up in my emotions, and I'm just so, it's got to be sunny out, right? And I'm just like, I can't believe this. And God, even though I don't see it, I don't feel it, I don't know it, he's working. He's the way maker. He's been working on you, and you're here for a reason. And so as we sing this song, I'm going to get it right. I'm going to have you stand, and when you come and sign these things, there's people to pray with you. Come find the Waymaker, because I got one thing. Are you ready? For 24 years, something has been working. You're here because of a decision 24 years ago. Stand, would you?
Touching every heart, I worship you. talking about, everybody. See it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Oh, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working.
So we were on our way down here. I was so excited to get here and just, reconnect with so many of you. And my wife goes, look at this post on Facebook. And I said, we hired this guy as a huge risk. His name was Tracy, but his wife was way more of a risk. So 13 years ago, listen to what it says. Our traveling this weekend, 2009, November 19. Please pray for our family. Big changes may be on the horizon, and we should know more next week. They didn't get out of town before we said, you're going to have to come here and fix this. But before that day, in 1999, 10 years earlier, I showed up at this church in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I went, the very first thing I did is went to this camp in Michigan. And at the camp, Tracy Pfeiffer was there, and Tracy had a mohawk and was looking all wild and crazy. I'm like, and I'm going, what did I get myself into? And honestly, Tracy was a great guy. We connected a little bit at camp, just a little bit, but he was involved in a group home. And so he had to come to student ministry because he had a bunch of kids, rowdy kids that he was occupying. So I finally just approached him and said, as long as you're here, you want to just hang out in student ministry. He's like, Tracy, he's so committal. Yeah, I can do that. And so he did that. And then about a year later, we met in this place called the chapel, and there was a kitchen kind of attached. And on the back wall, I see Tracy standing there, and he's got this girl next to him. And I walk up to him, and they're holding hands. He goes, hey, I want to introduce you to my girlfriend, Mandy. I go, hey, Mandy, how are you doing? And Mandy gave me the stink eye, and I got the get away, and been doing that ever since, right? Yeah. And he kind of drug her along. She wasn't super excited, okay? About partway through the year, I said, listen, would you guys just like to dial in and be my seniors? There's 40 of them. Would you take all the seniors? She's like, yeah. Oh, Mandy too? Yeah, okay, I'll convince her to do that. And we made, they did that. They did a phenomenal job. And he went off to do youth ministry somewhere. And it was then in 2009 that he called and goes, hey, could I come be your youth pastor? And that was our connection. I want to just tell you this. Hang on. 1999, this thread started. And it was a connection that he and I and Mandy and Ray Jean and us began to make. And then I said, you know what? It's time for me to go. Tracy, you're in charge. And because he's in charge, you're here. The thread's still going. "24 years ago, God saw this service," because we believe he's past, present, future, right? God saw this service. He saw you here.
Amen.
He never stops working. Even though you don't see it, even though you don't feel it, you are highly favored. Why walk out of here with your regret? Why walk out with the barrier you may have that's keeping you from moving forward? Get in the flow and experience the goodness that God has. That's the call. 24 years, people. 24 years. He saw you. He wants you here. He wants you here for a reason. Don't walk away from it. I'm going to have John pull us back into that bridge and connect with the Waymaker. Come up here. Let these people pray with you. Let them pray for you. Experience the freedom, the presence of God, because he's calling you.
Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Oh, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. 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 That is who you are.
So I just got a chance to pray with some people. I went up to Dusty before second service, and he's the guy who sets up the prayer teams and all that. And I was like, man, Steve is speaking this morning. Can I do prayer team? Like, I never get to do that. And so it's an amazing morning for me because I've gotten to do that both services, and that's been fun. And to have Steve, you guys can have a seat. To have Steve here, he talked about the slow start, and there's a lot of kingdom risk. That not only do we put in, but God risks on us. I joked last night with the North Egan crew that school was not my strong point. I did great. I was awesome up to about second grade, and then it just went downhill from there. And honestly, when I was in high school, if you'd have said, "Hey, you're going to be doing this in your 40s," I'd been like, "There's no way," because there were a lot of people in my life who thought before I was I would have a kid before I had a degree in high school. If I got the degree was semi-optional. And so I had a really slow start, especially when you're talking ministry and doing things for Jesus. But Steve took a risk bringing us forward, or bringing us up here. God took a risk, in allowing us to be part of this. But we said a couple weeks ago, the mission and the vision is God's. The miracles, he invites us to be part of it with him. And he wants to do that for every one of us, if we're willing to obediently go yes, to obediently step in the direction he tells us to step, because he calls us every day to do that. And so let me pray, and then we'll wrap this up. God, I thank you that you want to use us, Lord, that you want to work in and through our lives. May we quickly and confidently obey. As you call us out to the next step, may we take that step. And as we do that, may we see your blessings, not only in our lives, but in the lives of those around us. And may we see your kingdom advance, more and more people finding eternity with you,
simply because we're obedient. We beg you to do that through us. Give us courage. In your name, amen. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week.